Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this time that you have opened in our lives to pause in the rush of everyday life and listen to ways that make our lives safer and easier. We ask now for the presence of the Holy Spirit to guide and open our ears and eyes to what we are to hear. We ask this in Christ's name. Dave, you want to introduce the speakers for today?
I'm sure everybody here has probably been the subject of some sort of scam, email or text, or just last Friday I got the hello grandpa, this is your oldest grandson call. And as soon as I said, oh, and what's your name, they hung up. But anyway, today's program should be of interest to all of us. No matter how smart we think we are, we have to stay vigilant. Our two speakers today are from the Westtown East Goshen Police Department. We have Officer Ken Friselli, and he's been with the department 10 years. He's the Community Relations and School Resource Officer. And Detective David Hale, he's also been with the department for 10 years, and he's in charge of criminal investigation. So without further ado, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, folks. Again, my name is Officer Ken Friselli. This is Detective David Hale. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about the frauds and scams, some of the common ones that we see, and then we're going to also talk about a little bit just these things are changing all the time. And every day we get a call about some kind of new situation. So we're going to talk about some of those. The idea is just to raise awareness that these are out there, and unfortunately they do target our elderly senior population. So let's just jump right in. So we had a brief introduction. My name's Officer Ken Friselli. I have been with the department since 2013. I went to Penn State University and the Delaware County Municipal Police Academy. Before I was a police officer for 16 years, I worked in corporate finance for a company called Vanguard. You may have heard of them. They're located in Malvern. And then I kind of got involved in some things over there in their corporate compliance that piqued my interest in police doing law enforcement. So I do patrol and community relations. David, did you want to talk a little bit about?
Sure. Yeah, real brief. 10 years as well. Detective Dave Hale with criminal investigations now for about 2 years, where we mainly focus on the long-term crime that occurs in the area. So if you're a victim of something, you'll probably get a phone call from me. Prior to Westtown, I worked at Malvern Borough Police Department for about 18 months. So it gives me about 12 years experience. Delaware County Municipal Police Academy, graduate from Westchester University in criminal justice, as well as California University, where I got my graduate degree. And that's it, I think, for an intro. So, but we're here to answer your questions, and we have plenty of examples to use today to try to get you an idea what's going on out there. All right.
So scammers do not discriminate. They about 5% of the elderly population reports getting scammed each year, but that is just a fraction of the amount of fraud that has taken place. A lot of times scams they don't make a police report. Sometimes they're upset or they're embarrassed about the situation. It is a multi-billion-dollar business. Say about $3 billion every year. It's probably going up. And they're very convincing. Okay, we see them every day, and more and more they sound like it's Comcast calling you. It seems like it's an email from Amazon. So it is very tricky, and just for really anybody, in this environment that we're all connected. We have our phones, we have our emails, we have our computers. Just a couple of the handful of the ones we're going to talk about is Social Security and the IRS scam. So has anybody gotten that call from the people saying that your IRS, you owe money and you're going to be arrested. So we're going to talk a little bit about that one. Computer virus scams, romance scams, lottery and sweepstakes and rebate fraud, checks, counterfeit checks, Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. We're always seeing new things there. The grandparent scam that was brought up, and then other types. And we'll give you some examples because we see new ones every day. So the IRS and Social Security scams, these became popular, I'd say probably about 5 years ago, maybe even farther back. These are actually, they're starting to become well known. So we don't see them as much anymore, but as we get into tax season, I'm sure all of a sudden those phone calls will start coming up and we'll start getting reports of fraud. So thousands have lost millions of dollars on it and given out their personal information for the tax and Social Security scams. These were the most common ones, probably not as much anymore. So just a couple things is, we all know, I'm sure, that the Social Security Administration and the IRS, they're not going to call you and demand some type of payment immediately. It's just not.
Have on mute, honey. Have on mute.
And did you have a question, or is? Okay, so they're not going to call you and demand money. So the police, when we have a warrant for somebody's arrest, we don't call and warn them ahead of time if we're heading over to the house, because we never catch anybody, would we? They don't usually wait around for us. So so those are all red flags. So some other things is in a lot of frauds and scams, there's some type of gift card payment. So it was the Apple iTunes card. They would demand payment in, I had one the other day, they wanted a Target gift card where they tell the person that that's the way they'll accept payment. And they send the person, they'll even give them directions. You go over to Rite Aid or you go over to CVS and you go to this aisle and you pick out the gift card, you scratch off the back and then you read the numbers to somebody. That's a red flag that it is not a legitimate situation. So I got a couple videos. We're gonna, do you guys feel comfortable with the IRS and the Social Security? Do you feel like we need a video, or you guys good? Okay. So just a couple examples, and these are examples that we've seen. Is a person receives several automated calls from the IRS, and that the person's Social Security number was compromised, and the person, it's almost like a computer generated voice. Has anybody gotten those? Okay, and it says it's the IRS or Social Security, and what they do is they give a number. Sometimes it comes up right on the phone. It says Washington D.C. IRS. It's very convincing. So they call back and then they give like personal information. Another example is a person receives a phone call from a person stating they are from the Social Security Administration. The caller is informed that there's criminal charges against them pending in Texas for money laundering. The person was told to take money out of their bank account and purchase Google gift cards while the person was at the bank and on the phone discussing the situation. A bank employee, and we see this a lot, a bank employee or a cashier at the CVS or the Rite Aid intervenes and says, hey, who are you talking to? What's going on here? And they're able to tell them, hey, this sounds like fraud and you should stop and verify this information. And that's what happened in this situation. So this is just a quick video. Let me see what comes.
Did you get a call or message that mentioned Social Security that made you feel threatened or scared? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, press you for personal information, or demand instant payment. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Don't fall for it. Hang up, ignore them. Report this criminal activity to oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
So they even gave information on how to report these incidents. We do get a lot of reports where someone's received a phone call and they pass along this information to the police department. Unfortunately, we're just not equipped to be able to prosecute people for these crimes unless they're in our local vicinity. A lot of times the phone calls are being generated through an internet provider, and they're coming from overseas, like Thailand or Malaysia or all kinds of different places that we see them. So we just don't have very good luck on trying to recover money or prosecute people when a crime actually has occurred, unfortunately. The FBI has looked into some of these, and every once in a while they are able to make an arrest.
Did you get a call or message that mentioned social?
Let's go to the next one. Skip this one because this is pretty much the same. So that's the Social Security IRS scams. Any questions? Anything you want to add, Detective Hale, before we move on?
You mentioned like the FBI and what we're capable of doing from an investigative and a prosecutable standpoint. The challenge we face is unless the person lives within our immediate area, we can't go out there and physically grab them, especially for the amounts of money that we're seeing. You know, I can think of a case-specific example. A lady without $5,000, a lot of money, probably most of us in the room, right? Or the folks joining us online, but the feds don't care about $5,000. And they're not going to put time and effort, resources to find somebody who stole $5,000. So we're kind of always in between. Like, we're capable of investigating and identifying people from time to time, but if they're in California, we can't do anything. The feds could, but they're not going to put time and resources into looking into that one individual for one specific crime. And then the challenge of trying to get, let's say everybody here is a victim and you're all across the region, how do we link 100 people together? And I have an example specific to this congregation about check fraud. You may have heard about it last year. We can talk about that later, but it's very challenging to try to get 1,000 people linked in order to prosecute a crime. And we can kind of go into that on the investigative standpoint, but that's a challenge we face with these types of stuff. Is it's well outside of our grasp physically, and the amounts just don't equate to enough to help with the feds bringing in their resources.
And that's why we found that educating our residents in situations like this is really the best way we could try and combat these type of frauds and scams. So it's kind of why we're here. So computer virus scams. So has anybody encountered these? So these are actually, it's like a pop-up window that comes up, and it's very convincing that they come up on the computer.
They said, don't turn your computer off.
Yeah, and somehow there's technology. So I know my mom got this, and it was when she was going to refill prescriptions through, I don't know what website that she uses, and she got this pop-up on her computer that says you got a virus that you need to call Microsoft, and you know, you call a phone number and a person answers the phone and they're like, oh, this is Microsoft, but it's not Microsoft, and there's no virus on your computer. So this gets a lot of people. So they call, they get the pop-up, they call the number, they talk to a technician, and they are asked to pay a fee and give remote access to the computer while they start doing all these different things and maybe pulling information from the computer, maybe like banking information, personal information. And then they're charged a fee to fix the computer when there was nothing really wrong with it to begin with. So this is one that we do see, and sometimes people report it, sometimes they don't, but it's very convincing. So this is a computer virus scam. Sir?
Is that pop-up in the form of an email, or is it in the form of you're using Word on in your Microsoft computer on Microsoft and it pops up through Microsoft?
It's usually through web browsing. So they are on the web doing some type of activity, and then that is able to come through a pop-up window. So that's usually how they get it.
They take over the computer quite, you can't do anything with that.
It locks it.
Yeah, it
It
freezes,
locks the
yeah.
computer and you can't do anything about it. What I did, I just turned everything off.
That's the best way to do it. And if the computer still does not work, to go to a local computer, not to call 1-800 number or anything like that, or to seek some type of actual help with it, not to call and pay a fee and give somebody access. Romance scams. It's surprising. This seems to get all age groups. So romance scams. So what happens is the person is using websites to meet somebody else, and they develop an online relationship with another person, and then maybe the person isn't local or something along like. And sometimes they have very convincing stories of they were injured in a serious accident, or they have some type of ailment. And since the person has had this maybe phone conversations, text messages, emails, they feel like they've had this connection with the person, and the person starts asking for money. And the victim is so enamored with this person that they start sending money. And eventually, we've had one where the person figured out that they found the person who was asking for the money on another website with a different name, but the same picture and everything. And then they started to realize it was a scam. So a lot of times these aren't reported because they are so embarrassed by the whole situation. I've also seen on TV recently where these romance scams were used to convince somebody into an investment scheme. So they developed a relationship with somebody online. Through that relationship, the person started saying, "Hey, I'm investing in cryptocurrency. I just made all this money." And I guess there's a level of trust that they have with the person that they're talking to. And before they know it, they're all of a sudden going to a website and subscribing to some type of cryptocurrency, and they're convinced that they're going to, make millions of dollars off of cryptocurrency. So these are out there. It's another type of scam that we see. All right, lottery, sweepstakes, and rebate fraud. These are interesting too. So kind of the scenario. Well, we'll go ahead. We'll drop down. So the lottery person receives a letter stating or an email stating they won the lottery. So congratulations, you've won the lottery. The letters look like it's from Publishers Clearinghouse, and they have the logos. They look very official. We've seen these examples, and sometimes they'll have a check attached, and the check it looks real. It's not real, but what it does is it fools people to send money to pay fees or taxes in order to claim the rebate. They're trying to get the victim to send real money from their bank account in exchange for this fake check. So just because a check that you receive in the mail, it looks real, you can deposit in your account, and then sometimes the banks, most of the times the banks say it's a check for $5,000. They'll actually show that credit pending in your account, and then the person actually sends money back to wherever they're sending the money to, and then they realize a couple days later when the bank tries to actually get the $5,000 that those are just bogus numbers on the check. The account number and the routing number don't lead to any accounts. So the example, the person receives an email stating they've been awarded a $500 rebate, and it provided a phone number for a person to call. The person called the number to claim the rebate. Later, the person received a check for $5,000 instead of $500. The person is then instructed to go to Walmart, purchase gift cards in $500 increments totaling $4,500 and keep the remaining $500 for the rebate. So they feel like, oh, I'm going to get a free $500. Later, the person is informed by the bank that the check was fake. So kind of like the example I was giving. Any questions about lottery sweepstakes and rebate fraud? Go ahead, sir.
How long does it take for a check to clear?
It's all dependent on your bank. And the issue is I remember, so I was in the finance industry for a long time. They would not show that balance in your account until the check cleared. Somehow the banks have changed their policy, I don't know, laws or whatever has changed, that they'll show that phantom $5,000 in your account. It's really not there. When they go and try and get the money from the whatever other bank and they figure out it's fraud, then they just wipe it away. And that's usually when the person's actually already sent some money. But they always bait people into thinking they're getting some kind of free money out of it. So they send you $5,000. Oh, it's our error. And I've seen this with all kinds of different ones. Saw this with it was an Airbnb situation where the person was renting like a 2-bedroom apartment down at the I think it was in Ocean City, Maryland, and she had it on online Airbnb, but then somebody contacted her, said, I want to rent this. She wanted to rent it out for some ridiculous amount of money for over the winter months. So she was very tempted by it because nobody wants to rent the place during the winter months to go down the shore. So she was very intrigued, and the person sent a large amount of money and then said, oh, my accountant sent me too much money. Keep this amount and just send me back, some other amount. So they're tempting you by free money in it. And so it was another type of, and then she called, then when she got the check and she started figuring out this is a little fishy, I better call the police. And I walked in, I'm looking at all the paperwork, and I looked at that check. I said, that check is not worth whatever it was, $4,500. That's probably worth, a penny or two because it was a fake check. Okay, counterfeit and fake checks. So these are common out there. So people get them, they think they are real, and they even convince the bank sometimes to credit your account. The banks allow you to deposit them, show the balance in your account. Once the bank receives notifications that the check is fake, they'll deduct the money out of your account. So any type of situation where somebody overpays you with a check that looks like this, I'd be very suspicious, okay? Because that's usually a red flag for fraud.
This is by far the number one thing we're dealing with is check fraud, check washing, counterfeit checks. I can think there's probably thousands that are occurring right within the West Town, East Goshen, West Goshen area right as we speak. It's just incredible how much is taking place. The best way to prevent, we're talking about prevention, and you asked a question about how long it takes to clear. If somebody sends you a check, don't withdraw funds until that check clears. That'd probably be the number one thing to do. Even though they do put a lot of times a significant amount of stress on you, like the cops are coming, so do it now or else. Obviously, they know that's bogus. So you get a check, you let the bank take that hit before you do. They are insured. More times than not, they will reimburse the account owner. There's a lot of legwork that has to take place for you to do that. Banks are notoriously customer service based. That's why they allow these funds to be available to you, especially if you have the funds to cover it. One thing I do personally when it comes to any kind of check stuff, I don't keep any money in my checking account. It's all in my savings. I pull out funds as needed, when needed, So if something does get hacked or something like this occurs, I'm not out this huge sum of money. So again, it's all about prevention. Put yourself in a safe position. So if it does happen, you're not vulnerable. That's the best way to go about it.
And so one of the things we're seeing, and it's not in this presentation, is where people go to pay like their Comcast bill. They write out a check, put it in an envelope, and they send it back to Comcast. And later they see that check that they wrote to Comcast is now written out to a individual person for a much different amount of money. So you send Comcast, $125. Now the bank all of a sudden cashes that check to John Smith for $4,500. Okay. What people are doing is they are intercepting that piece of mail and opening it up and taking the check, and that they're changing who it's written out to and the dollar amount. And then they're able to deposit into account, and then the funds are withdrawn from your account. And go ahead, sir.
This has always bothered me, because how did John Smith open an account? Because since the Patriot Act, to open an account, you have to almost disrobe in front of the bank. You have to show them your ID, your social security. If it's a business you're setting up, you have to show them the corporation documents and a board resolution and all this. So how do they set an account up at a bank? And if it's phony, isn't that bank liable rather than you?
So as for setting up the account, I'm not quite sure. They may just be going in and cashing the check.
And a lot of it's fictitious information. That just takes time to look. But the check fraud that involved this parents as well as many others in the area, it was all fake passports from Romanian nationals. Good enough to get through the initial, and they catch on eventually. They realize it is fake, but again, customer service based. So they get $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 through it. It gets flagged for being fake. They shut it down. Well, the damage has already been done. There's that lapse. They know there's a lapse in time of reporting and knowing before they can catch up to it. What's always behind the criminal, unfortunately. And they know that, and they exploit that, essentially.
And
Excuse me, I just want to tell you that recently in Delaware County, there have been thefts of postmen stealing their keys to the blue mailboxes.
Correct.
And one of the ways they get this check is they open up the blue mailbox, which is the dome top blue box, take everything out of it, and then they wash the checks and do what they want with them. So I have been advised by the post office to do not leave any mail in your mailbox with a red flag up, and mail all of your bills at the post office inside, not in the blue box outside.
So that's 100% accurate. Thank you, George. The mailbox key, especially down in Philadelphia, in the lower parts of Delaware County, postmen are being actually robbed at gunpoint in some cases for their key. Those keys are unique to a certain region of post box. So exactly, they're going in there in the middle of the night. You can actually see them on camera sometimes we can. They pop open that box, take the entire postal bucket with them and roll. It's within 5 seconds, they're on their way. They cut open what they know is to be a bill, and they wash the checks. A little bit of acetone and a Q-tip. They can wipe that name off, write their name in, deposit the check. The next challenge is that a lot of times it's all done online. So mobile deposit with your cell phone, mobile deposit via computer. There's no person interaction whatsoever. There's a lot of ways to prevent law enforcement to catch up by doing these types of things. So that's exactly what's going on right now with all these stolen checks. Not really a scam, but a fraud, to say the least.
And so what Detective Hale was talking about, the best defense for these, number one is to keep a small dollar amount in your checking account. I do this with my mom's accounts. I handle her finances for her. She's perfectly capable of handling, but I just try and, since I'm seeing all these things and seeing her encounter these situations, now we haven't had any problems, but So her checking, she has an investment, her Vanguard money market account, and that's where they keep the bulk of her assets there. And she just moves over what she needs into her checking account. So if you're ever a victim of a situation where somebody writes out a $4,500 check out of your account, there's not that much money in that account to withdraw from it. Most of the time, and the situations I've seen, the bank takes ownership and then credits the money back because the error falls on their situation. But still, we don't want you to have to go through that. So just one of the best defenses is keep a low dollar amount, just what you need in your checking account, and then keep your other money in it, some type of savings account. Go ahead, son.
I had a check stolen. Fortunately, it went to somebody we knew who called us because the envelope came empty and called us and told us what happened. And so I immediately went to the bank, closed that account, stopped payment on that check, and had everything transferred to a new account. I did have to pay $30 to stop the payment, but I figured I was safer that way.
Yeah, no doubt.
Is there any way to to write out the check that makes it more difficult to?
I've heard of some things like only use blue ink or something like that. I haven't confirmed that at all. I've even seen typed checks be altered. Some people use an online service, to do all their bill pay electronically. Even those have been altered. Again, a lot of this is taking place with, I'm seeing now with cell phones. So it could be a really nasty white job, but the camera is black and white, and when it goes through, it's good enough. And all they're really looking at is routing and accounting at the bottom, and they're untouched. The only thing that's changing is the name. And that is good enough to get through. They don't really care what the name is. All they care about is the account that it's going to, the account it's coming from. So that's the check.
I was told by a bank officer that the best way to protect yourself with the check is to use black ink
Maybe it's black ink.
and a gel pen.
That could be true. I haven't verified that one way or the other. But what George was saying, if you do want to mail checks, it's an inconvenience, but march that thing right on inside and hand it to somebody, and they could put it in their secure post inside the building, the brick and mortar building itself.
But then things get stolen at, I think at the church here, they were stolen when they got here, not when it was mailed.
So that case last year you're referring to, we never really determined where the checks were stolen from, because it was still occurring even after you guys put a lock on the mailbox. So it's really hard to determine where it's occurring, whether at people's mailboxes, somewhere in circulation, or at destination. We were never really able to pinpoint that down. And the postal inspector is still working that case, so he's trying to figure that out. But it's, as I mentioned earlier, really challenging to try to logistically figure out where all that's occurring.
Since it's global, do
Yes.
you get involved in that?
Yes, it starts with us.
Okay.
When we find that it is involving multiple victims, and in this case with the church check fraud that Jerry may have told you guys about, it was upwards of 700 victims and $500,000. So at some point, it goes outside of the realm of what West County Scotian Regional Police can do, myself personally, and it goes into more of a federal arena at that point. They have more
You
resources.
initially get involved in all of this.
I took, I don't know how many people reports initially, dozens for that, and then eventually gets handed off to the feds under certain circumstances. Yes.
Also, you even have to be wary of emails that have come from known friends.
Yes.
Because they may not have sent it.
My buddies.
Where they would go in and hack all the emails of the people that they communicate with and then send that scam to their friends.
That's spoofing in a nutshell. I'm sure we could probably get to that as well, but spoofing of phone numbers, spoofing of email addresses are all very common tactics. You get an email from Dave Hale. I know Dave Hale. This guy must be legit. But if you were to click on that sender's information, which you can do on an email, you'll see that the email address is something not .com, not .gmail. It's something different. That's usually a flag. And also, before you get that email, if you get it, you read it, call Dave. Say, hey, did you send this email? I don't know what you're talking about. Delete.
Yeah. I have seen some of those.
So I think, Ken, you have a phrase, stop, think. something like that.
Verify.
Verify.
That's at the
So
end.
we're gonna get to that, and that's exactly what we needed to do in these situations, stop, think, verify before we make any type of rash decisions.
But yeah, I saw one, Gary, just like that. It was a person, they get an email from an old friend that they hadn't heard from in a while. And he wrote back, oh, hey, how are you? Well, good to hear from you. And then the person sent another email saying, well, I had this problem with my foot and surgery and I'm behind on some payments, and all of a sudden they're asking for money. And that's when he looked at the email that it came from, and it was not his friend. So, then he reported it to the police, but.
It looks very real.
It did, that's until they asked for money. That's when he said, wait a sec, this guy's well off. What's he asking me for money? But,
Excuse me for interjecting again, but my son taught me a very good trick with respect to email. And it's going around, do you shop on Amazon? That's one of the famous ones. And lately I've been getting Ace Hardware announcements. We've been trying to reach you to give you a new drill. What you do, instead of clicking on that, go to where it says Ace Hardware, take your cursor and hover under it. And if the information underneath that doesn't say Ace Hardware and is a bunch of alphabetical letters all jumbled up, it's a scam. So you just delete it. But if that's one way, you don't even have to open it. You just hover under that Ace Hardware designation, and you'll see a bunch of XYZ, HY, and so forth. You know that's a scam. So that's a very good example of how to avoid those scams.
Great, thanks, George. So let's get back to our presentation. So Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace scams. There's some rules that Craigslist puts out there. It's just deal locally, face to face. The common one here was always where the person they're selling an item on Craigslist. The potential buyer contacts the seller and offers to an additional a large amount of money over whatever the couch or whatever it's supposed to cost to cover shipping expenses of shipping it somewhere else. The seller is given a fake check, and they don't realize that until they have already shipped the item, or somehow they're out of money or sent back extra money because it's a fake check. We don't see these as often as we had in the past, but this was like probably one of the first scams that we started seeing. So the police department has a safe trade spot for somebody who wants to sell an item, and people sell items successfully all the time on Facebook and Craigslist. But there's just some things that you want to be careful, deal locally, face-to-face with someone, use a safe trade spot to meet somebody. So we have one right at the police station that's marked right in the front of the building.
Cameras there.
We have cameras there.
Well lit.
Exactly. Make sure only the items, so are when you're selling something, if you're going to list it, you want to be careful what else is in that picture when you're listing it. So we had something rather recently, somebody where they were selling a dirt bike or something. They took a picture in front of their garage of the dirt bike. Behind in the garage were several of their dirt bikes. They posted it on Facebook, and then someone came and stole all the dirt bikes in that.
Right. So use a safe trade. At a minimum, don't give away your address. Don't say, meet me at my place, we'll exchange here. Because if you're selling a classic Mustang in your driveway, and I'll be there tomorrow, it'll be stolen that night, because he'll just come and trailer it out of it. So use those places at your local police departments or wherever. Just don't give out any personal information. That includes an address, because they'll come by and they'll break in and steal it. And we've had dozens and dozens of, mostly dirt bikes and motorcycles are the most easiest, because most people are selling them and they're not real crazy and they're easy to steal. But use the safe trade location if you're going to do it.
Go ahead, sir.
Are automatic withdrawals and deposits secure?
So In my experience, yes. I have several of my kids. I have not had a problem. That's not usually where we see any type of fraud. Like I said, fraud's usually it's fake checks, gift cards, something along those lines. Yeah.
There's an issue with the transaction. It's probably because the individual probably provided some type of information to somebody who then gained access to an account. But the individual transactions, I think, are relatively safe.
Yeah, so, and that's online payments when you're going direct to pay something online, not through an email link or anything like that when you want to pay for something. We've not seen the levels of fraud there. Where we see it is when you're emailed a thing to pay your bill and you follow the link there and you pay it somehow online. That could be fraud, but usually that's a safe method of making a payment on things. So one of the grandparent scams. So has anybody received the phone calls? Okay, so this, we see a lot of these. Sometimes the person is able to figure out that this is fraud. So kind of how this works is the victim receives a phone call from a person claiming to be a grandchild, or it can be a person being legal representation or a police department in a foreign country or a distant location. And they're claiming that a family member is in trouble and they need to send money. They're saying that somehow they were arrested, they got in some type of accident, someone was hurt, there's criminal charges. The victim either sends cash or makes a payment by Western Union, MoneyGram, gift cards, etc. So this has been out there for a long time. And it still gets people because it's very convincing.
Hang on.
Hang up. Yeah, and so when we'll watch this quick video here, but what happens is it can be a person who is well versed in this type of fraud, but what it gets them at a time when they just are not from it just gets them at the wrong time. Okay, and they feel like, whoa, I need to help a family member. So they're not like people who aren't intelligent or anything. It's the timing when they receive that call that sometimes they fall for it.
I had read and heard different stories similar to mine, and I was always wondering why somebody with an education, knowing what's going on in this world, falls for such stuff. And I figured I was too well informed and too smart for somebody to take advantage of me, but they just caught me at the right time. Hi, my name is Bernie, and I was a victim of fraud. One Saturday, I got a phone call, and a voice on the phone says, "Hi, Pawpaw." And that's what my grandchildren call me all the time, is Pawpaw. He says, I'm up in New York. And I couldn't figure out why he would be in New York, but so be it. I says, "This is Zachary, isn't it?" He says, No, I'm not Zachary. I'm your other grandson, Pawpaw." And I said, "Oh, this is Jacob." He says, "Yeah, I'm Jacob." So that was my first mistake. And he says, I've got a big problem. I was in a car accident. A lady ran a red light and hit the car, and I got arrested for DUI. He went on to tell me that he needed money to get out of jail. So that's why I'm calling you, Pawpaw, so I can get some money. And when he said that, I immediately knew that I had to help the kid out. I asked Jacob where I could send the money And he said, well, the police were nice enough to give me the phone number and name of a public defender that will take care of the case. And I immediately called this supposedly attorney, John Williams. And John Williams went over the fact that he needed $1,500 to get Jacob out of jail. And he explained to me to go to my local Western Union office and you can send the money to me. I immediately went to Western Union to send the money. And after returning home, it kept going through my mind if I had done the right thing. The next morning, the phone rings and it's Western Union. Man says, I'm from Western Union. I want to tell you that the transaction that you made yesterday has been frozen because we think this is a fraudulent transaction. And he told me then what to do, go back to the Western Union kiosk, explain to them what is going on, and he gave me a number that they could use to retrieve my money. If you want to prevent yourself from being taken advantage of, and if you get a phone call where someone is wanting a donation or wanting to help somebody in the family that is falling on hard times or having a problem, don't act right away. Don't be so quick to fall for what might be going on. Hang the phone up. I can call you back. It will give you some time to maybe clear your mind to know that it's a scam.
So he's lucky. FedEx, or not FedEx, Western Union came to the rescue and stopped it. That's, I'll say, unlikely to happen. We've seen people lose tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to these types of scams via Western Union, and there's little to no recourse. Once the money rolls, it's pretty much out there. So I would stay away. They are getting a little better, I think, Western Union with seeing this type of stuff, but I would still be wary of transferring money that way.
Yes, sir. In this case, he obviously helped the fraud by giving the guy the names of his grandchildren, but how did they know he was addressed as Paw?
Who is Facebook? Everybody got Facebook? I can guarantee you, I can go on Google and search every one of your names and get some type of personal information on you, okay? Because it's out there now. And all I need is a crack. And the next thing you know, I might not get your profile, but I'll get your niece's profile. And that's enough. And if somewhere there's a crack that things aren't public or private, you can get just enough in there. And that's how all the old tarot card readers used to bamboozle people, just enough to get you on the hook, to give you some type of credibility, and the rest just falls in place. Then they distract you and say, hey, yeah, no, I call you Papa, but listen, I'm in an accident. So now you shift gears from being Pop to how can I help you? And then next thing you know, you're just shelling out cash.
So if it seems real, you need to keep asking questions.
You can keep that if you want to entertain
Jacob,
them.
what kind of car do I drive? Or
Yeah,
something he
something
would
like
know
that.
that's not on.
If you want to address it right then and there, hang up, call Jacob.
Yeah.
I say, where you at? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm at home, studying.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Not
Okay,
New York.
now we're done. You know what I mean? So.
Officer, an interesting exercise is to go on Google and Google yourself, and you'll see what's out there.
Yeah, I do it pretty routinely myself. That's a good question, a comment there, Bill.
I have a good example I can use. About 5 or 6 years ago, I was leader of this group, sole leader. And I got a call about 5:30 on a Friday evening, curiously enough. And Dave, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you're a leader of the Tuesday Fellowship group. And we tried to contact Don Lincoln and John Frost, the pastors at your church. And so I really hate to bother you, but we just had a car accident. Our car is totaled and we need to get bus tickets back for my wife and my 2 kids. And, could you help me out? Well, my heart's just, I'm a Christian. I'm supposed to help out fellow Christians. He says, I've been to your group. It's such a great group. And so the only thing in that thing that kept me from doling out, I don't know what, he wanted me to go, I think to Kmart, Western Union or something like that. The only thing that kept me from doing it was he said, they're 2 young kids. How many have 2 young kids? Can meet on a Tuesday morning.
Right.
So I think I reported this one, immediately gave you the phone number, but it doesn't do much because you can't chase these. The calls are come from who knows where, but they have the information on our pastors.
Yeah.
Boy, my heart was just tugging, and so I just thought you'd be interested in hearing my own personal, with this group.
Right.
Being the leader of this group and almost being dragged like everybody else.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. Yeah, so there is so many different frauds and scams out there. So just we'll go over a couple of the check phishing. We talked about that, where they're grabbing the checks out of the blue mailboxes. Okay, think about alternate bank accounts. Don't keep a large amount in your checking account if you're ever a victim and this happens. Make payments online. Embarrassing photos, pornography sites. This is mostly our younger kids seem to have things here where someone exchanged photos and now they're asking for money, trying to score money from them for saying, well, we're going to send this picture to all your friends and family. Robocalls, so those are those computer generated calls that IRS, Social Security, and really anything. Those are usually fraud, most of the time fraud. I got a call the other day. I took it was from like the police at Union, and then so they called me asking for a donation that they were going to use to help the police buy equipment, so and so forth. And I just was like, oh, come on, give me a break. Because the local police association, they send a mailer out every year. So I got a call, asking for a donation to the police department. Anything involving gift cards. So this is a red flag. If they want payment, yeah, go get me a Google gift card, an Amazon gift card, and read off numbers. Red flag right there. Text messages from Amazon and other unknown. So I get them a text message, just some odd one providing a link. There's a red flag for fraud. And then investment schemes. We see this out there with the cryptocurrency. We just had a case a week ago with Detective Hale and I, where a person was convincing an elderly lady that she needed to invest in, what was it, foreign?
Vietnamese dong is actually the currency to say. It is legitimate, believe it or not, but I just don't think you're going to get the return on investment that she thinks she will be getting.
So I would just, from my background in investments, invest in a reputable company, a mutual fund, all of these things, these cryptocurrencies. I don't know that. I don't feel like that's going to make you a millionaire.
Gary up front, you got a question? What do you got?
Well, it's also very important that you stress reputable firm, because there are firms out there that are legal traders and all that will steal from you.
High rates.
There are bad firms out there, so you want to make sure you're always working with a reputable firm.
So like I said, I worked for Vanguard for 16 years. I still invest my money through Vanguard. It was so. I would recommend a reputable firm like that. So what we want you to get from this is stop, think, and verify, okay? That's scammers prey on people to act immediately, just like the grandparent scam. They think, oh, I'm in trouble now, I need money. They use fear tactics and threats to keep you from assessing the situation. Verify. Hang up the phone, call that family, relative, whoever is asking for money. Think before taking the action, because that is usually what the scam is to hook you in to this situation, make them feel like they're legitimate and then keep you acting until they get the money. So that's really the end of our slide presentation. I can tell you, I had a call the other day where a woman got a phone call from Comcast, and she said, well, and it was offering this this great deal on reducing her Comcast bill over the next 2 years. It was like half off for the next 2 years, but so she wanted to take advantage. She's been subscribing to Comcast for the last 30 years. So she was convinced it was legitimate. And then she went and got a $500 Target gift card to prepay this great deal from Comcast. And then after she sent the money, or she gave the person the codes, she started to get suspicious. So she called Comcast and talked to their billing department, and she realized it was a scam. She only lost $500. She was upset with herself, but it wasn't 5,000 or 50,000. But you know, they come with a very convincing proposal, and it just hooks people. Okay, and the reason why it gets usually our senior population is a couple things. It's your generation is in technology. You're not usually I'm not the most technology savvy with that. It's a difficult world out there. It's only getting more complicated. I have to rely on my kids to do things on my iPhone. Seniors also have access to liquid assets. Okay, so usually a large retirement fund or some type of pension or something. So that's probably that money makes you guys vulnerable. And also your generation is very trusting. Okay, that was just the world that you grew up in. You tend to take people's word for it, and that's why they target our senior population. So Detective Hale, what you want to go over any certain cases, any examples that you don't think we've touched upon?
Yeah, I kind of interjected a couple examples along the way. Are there anything going on in your guys' neighborhoods or churches that you kind of want to bring up? We can kind of.
I got one right here on my phone.
I got an email just now from Norton Antivirus for $500. You know, I mean,
service from, what does this say? Billing department of PayPal sent you an invoice for
I get PayPal every
$1,000.
day.
I've gotten this at least twice.
yeah, I get them every day too.
And I don't open it, but I have been forwarding it to the phishing department at PayPal. I don't know if they're doing anything about it or not.
New email address every time. So it's just another fake email address sending it. So it's just another phishing expedition. It's just constant.
Just keep deleting them,
I'll just keep deleting. Delete.
because I don't spend $1,000.
You do I.
There's another news scam I just heard about. It involves online payment. My prior employer in Downingtown had arranged with a landlord for an automatic payment of $14,000 a month for the rent.
Yeah.
Everything's fine for a year. Somebody calls the accounting office, says, please change, we've changed our bank, send the 14,000 to this new address. Nobody stopped, maybe he stopped and thought, but he didn't verify. So
Right.
now they're out $14,000. It was a scam.
So he's still sending
So-
it, thinking he's good.
so
Meanwhile,
We've got to now watch any online payments because somebody's going to try to reroute those to a fraudulent.
I'm not sure if people use Venmo. You mentioned online payments. Venmo is an online transfer of funds between individuals. I use it all the time with my friends and family. That's a very common space, location for fraud as well, is on these Venmo accounts. And again, like anything else online, it could be happening all over the world. So we have a lot of limitations we have to overcome in order to try to investigate and prosecute these kind of crimes.
I've gotten, I guess in the last couple of months, 2 or 3 texts wanting to do a survey.
Yeah.
With a link, and I got suspicious and.
Yeah, just, do you really want to do a survey? I mean,
No.
nobody wants to do a survey anyway. Delete and move on. It could be legit sometimes, but especially down right now with like politics or with everything
That's
going
what I
on.
assumed, but-
It could be legitimate, but what's the difference? You know what I mean? So I wouldn't even risk it. All the way to the back date.
So My wife does a lot of front porch sales on Facebook, and it's usually, I don't think she's done maybe one over 50. But it's usually for nominal amounts. We leave cash. And so we haven't had any problems. Are there any examples of the low dollar amounts being scammed?
Now, Ken brought this up too, as far as for the most part, I see most people are very successful doing Craigslist or Facebook. You can do a lot of good there. You just open yourself up to potential problems if you do things at your home. I would just try to, well, the goal is to try to minimize any potential victimization, right? That's our ultimate goal. So nickel and dime stuff, glassware, you probably won't have an issue, but big ticket items like 4 wheels, 2 wheels, electronics, there's a value there, especially if you steal it for nothing, you can sell it for $1,000. There's a huge markup for that type of stuff. I don't really think I've seen a lot of, hey, somebody came up and stole my $5 vase. Well,
And just
junk anyway, so.
be deal locally. So the red flag would be someone from Maryland contacting your wife and says, "Oh, I'm interested in whatever, and let's meet up." And then so it's somebody from Westchester. Like I sold my son's old baseball equipment the other day, no problems at all. The woman was from Westchester. Look at her profile. They got little kids, so you do a little bit of research to see if it's legitimate. But once you start dealing with people like far away, New York, Maryland, somewhere else, that's like, this doesn't seem right. So go ahead, sir.
I have a question about passwords that you might know or not know, or somebody else here might know. We'll have dozens of passwords. If you have a password, say for myself, scheduling tee times at a local golf course, which is not a big deal, and it's not a secure password as I would do for a bank account. If somebody can hack into that password with your online tee time, do they gain access to your computer entirely?
I wouldn't really know the answer to that.
Okay.
First, what golf course you try to play at? I'm gonna try to sneak in there too. I don't really know if there's a break between that interaction with that course and you and accessibility to everything. I would imagine, I'm not a tech guy either, but with these pop-ups we talked about earlier, usually when you click on those, that's what they call a Trojan horse, and that allows that access to your computer. So I would imagine there'd be a break there, would be my guess, but if that happens, I would still contact your financial institutions, check all your stuff, make sure everything looks legit. Anything suspicious, contact the local police and we'll do something for you.
One of the things that happens in our church is that, I don't know how many other people have had this happen, but when Don Lincoln was our pastor, I received a number of emails from Don Lincoln saying somebody needed help, keep it confidential, don't call back at this number, just do this and do that. And I know that was a scam because that wouldn't be something that Don Lincoln would do. And every time that happens, I call Barbara Drain and tell her, and she said, yes, it's happening to a lot of people. So ministers are victims of this as well, because as Dave Goodale said, people, they prey on your Christian principles.
Sir,
because of the volume, is it really any point in reporting these incidents?
So if it's just an attempt, okay, so you get the call from the IRS and you hang up, and probably those don't need to be reported. You can go online and report it to the IRS. They take, or the FTC also takes reports. If you're a victim, if you've lost money, you fell for it, unfortunately, give us a call. We want to know about that, and we're going to do what we can to try and help you out.
Well, I was getting the calls, I guess there were calls from Social Security, which I ignored. So I went to the Social Security website to report it, and they wouldn't accept it unless there was a dollar amount that
you're actually the victim.
Yeah, so it's like,
that's the same type of filtering that we would have. Yes. So you had a question in the back there as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is a question regarding Facebook, and I don't know that there's any money involved in this or what, but I get it a couple times a week. So-and-so wants to be friends with you on Facebook. For what reason? I mean, these are
They're
people
bots.
that I'm already friends with.
Okay.
So are they looking to get information to get into their profiles or what?
Yeah, I'm not really
How
sure.
does that
I mean,
work?
a lot of the stuff online, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, all those online dating websites, I think there's a statistic out there, what percentage is actually real people compared to fake, just computer programs. I would imagine if you're getting the same thing over and over and over again, it's probably just a bot, they call
Yes.
it, and it's just junk.
If somebody wants to be friends on Facebook, yesterday I got one from a dead friend.
Right, so that's
You
it.
know, so-and-so wants to.
There's some.
Yeah,
Sure.
you know, and I was wondering what the reasoning.
There's probably
was.
some malice behind it. I really couldn't tell you, but there's probably, I'm sure there's a reason for it.
So we've seen those, I'm sorry, we've seen those where the person, maybe one of their friends' Facebook profile was hacked. And somebody is now impersonating that person and trying to be friends with all their friends. Another a scam we did see with that is where the person they were friends with on Facebook, maybe they don't see them that often, or it's like an old friend, and then they kind of trick them into, hey, I'm investing in this type of thing, you know, whatever it is, they somehow convince them, and they think, wow, that person has a lot of money, they live out in California, maybe I got to get in on this investment thing, that whatever they're doing. So we've seen that where they figure out like, hey, I finally called that person and they were like, oh yeah, my account was hacked, you know, 3 months ago. Don't listen to anything that whoever has that profile is saying. So we have seen those.
And you have to remember, like that person trying to get your friend request isn't doing it to just you. They're doing it to probably 1,000 people. And they need one person to say, accept request. And then they direct message them or send them a post saying, woe is me, here's my injury, can you please help me? You know what I mean? So it only takes one. It's zero effort, you know, to contact 1,000 people online. And you get one, you win. So that's, you have to keep that in mind. So it's a numbers game for the people online. Yes.
I have Venmo because my adult kids love it.
Yeah.
It makes me very nervous. What kind of scams, if any, are you seeing on Venmo?
Usually it's going back to Facebook and doing transactions on there for items. Like, hey, I'll come buy your bicycle for $100. And what we're seeing is the individual, the suspect will reach out to you and say, okay, well, I do a business account with Venmo. In order to have a business account, you need to prove to me, the victim to prove to me, the offender, that you're legit. So send me $100 up front and I'll send you the difference.
Okay.
Basically the same thing as the check nonsense that we've seen. You send me 100, I'll send you 50 or whatever. Then it comes up to be from a fake account. Vendor says those funds don't exist, you're out the money. It's the same shell game that we've seen in paper checks, just online, essentially.
Last year, we lived in Pittsburgh. 2 different times in about a 6 or 8 month period, we got credit cards, legitimate credit cards, legit, like not mainstream, but legitimate.
Yeah.
To someone whose name was not our name, but our address. One was a man, one was a woman. I actually Googled the woman. She was a nurse in Pittsburgh somewhere. Why, how would anybody benefit from that? I actually called the local police station. They said, no, you know, they couldn't do anything and they couldn't answer my question either. But what was it just a fluke that happened to us? It was so weird to get 2.
It does happen. I have seen it happen. What I would expect occurs is once those cards are issued, although the physical card goes to you, the individual who opened up the account into your name has digital access to it.
It's not my name.
Well, not your name, it's in their name, but it's for whatever reason. I guess is that account linked to you in any way? Do you know?
Just
It's our
no.
address. It's your address.
Just
So
our address, but
something-
companies we've never dealt with.
Yeah, they may be opening up fictitious accounts using your address,
Just random.
just random, you know, to just pick it out of the yellow, well, I'd say yellow pages.
We lived on a very short street. There are only like 4 houses on the street.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it was
we've
very
seen it happen before. You know, usually it's I open an account with your name, but the cards go to you. I don't change the address on the application. Now I just run off the card online. The bill goes to you, and you're stuck holding the bag. That's what we see more often than not. But there could be different variations of that.
I just held on to them for a few months in case there was any follow-up when we moved. I shredded them.
What are you guys doing out here?
grandchild in Conshohocken.
That makes sense.
But I picked up on the ends.
So just one of the things, since you were talking about credit cards, it is a good idea for really anybody to run a free credit report. You are able to do that once a year. And what that does is it is able to see, you'll see what credit cards you do have. And then if there's anything in there, so what in these type of situations where someone takes in somebody's name and birth date and social security number and opens up another credit card and uses a different address, and the person never knows about it. So it is a good idea to run a credit report every once in a while just to make sure that everything under your name is truly your debt or your credit.
And there are free sites on there. I use Credit Karma. You may have seen ads for it or heard of it. That actually monitors your credit for free. Now, if it's for free, you are actually the person. It's actually, they try to sell you on credit cards and different types of financing, but you can actually monitor your credit on there. It's legitimate. You know, it shows my mortgage, my car payment, and any credit cards I have. You just gotta just not keep getting credit cards through. That's how they make their money. But it is a free site. There are other ones out there, LifeLock. That's a subscription-based thing. If you've been a victim of some type of fraud, you're more apt to be a victim again, because once your information is out there, it's being traded and sold over and over and over again. So there are companies like LifeLock. Again, it is a monthly subscription service. There's other ones probably out there that can monitor all of your information. If something happens, you get notified right away and they can put a stop to it. So if you've been a victim, it might be worth looking into. I don't know. I'm not taking any type of credit from them, so I don't use their services, but they do exist, you know, to keep prevent, you know, just always be vigilant and know what's going on.
Can you provide any update on the situation with the church scam that you referred to? I was one of the people that had checks stolen.
Oh, that's all the name.
I never reported it.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. I arrested myself and a couple other detectives from out the region, identified the individual. He's a Romanian nationalist. He and his family are here, and they do scamming for a living. I charged him locally just to try to hold him here as long as I could before he gets deported, because the feds, as we all I think may know, take a significant amount of time to do things. The feds, postal inspector in particular, is looking into it. You'll probably be federally indicted, I'm hoping, because it is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars now. The more victims that we have documented and we can help add to that total makes an indictment that much more likely. He wasn't held on any of the charges locally because my case in of itself was just one leg. I needed the legs of all of them to try to hold it up better. So that's kind of the status of it. He's still in custody from what I understand. His family, I think, is also very well involved in that. And I think they were stealing checks from post boxes, maybe blue boxes, but it's only church checks, which I find incredibly unique, because a lot of these check washing, it's the sewer bill, it's the county tax bill, it's whatever. For this family, it was just churches, and there were hundreds of churches throughout the Delaware Valley involved. Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Philly, Montco, Bucks County, Berks County, Chester County, Delaware County. All of it were attached by the same group. And they're from Texas. Before that, they were in like North Carolina, they were in Maryland. So they just travel. Well, they call them travelers, and steal for a living, unfortunately. So yeah, it was a headache. I still toss and turn about that case every day.
So we'll wrap it up here. So folks, again, you know, this is just a small portion of the types of fraud and scams that we see out there. There's new ones coming out every day. And the idea here is to think this is an awareness. So you guys know all, you know, the robocalls, the text messages, the phone calls, and remember to stop, think, and verify. So if it is a legitimate operation, they should be able to give you legitimate information that you can verify. But thanks so much for having us here today. These are really important to get the education out, to let people know what's out there, to keep you from being a victim. Like we said, it's very difficult to prosecute once people do become a victim. So we really do appreciate being here today. We have some information and some items out on the table in the other room. Feel free, they're for you. Take them if you'd like. And with the woman who had the Comcast and I gave her one of our little squishy police cars. I said, put this by your phone. So when you think and you get that phone call and it's from Comcast saying we're going to lower your bill and to go buy this Target gift card, you look at that police car and you kind of remember, wait a sec, this seems too good to be true. Because it probably is, if it is too good to be true, it probably is a scam. So, take some of the items there. Thanks again for having us. We do really appreciate the
Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as they say, right? So just take those steps initially.
Do you know what to do when Comcast calls you?
Do I know? I don't have, I
How do you know?
Verizon.
Do you know how to market a scam?
I'm sorry?
Do you know how to market as a scam call?
How do I figure it out?
No,
Well,
what to do to make it a scam caller?
if you feel like just hang up the phone because you can.
No,
go ahead and
you
call.
can mark that phone number.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you're saying? I'm sorry, I'm
Yes.
misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Oh, how do?
You know how to do that?
On a cell phone, you can block numbers.
No, I'm talking on the house phone. You said you got a call. I didn't know what phone.
Oh, they're always coming to my cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't, but I do.
You can do that simply.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's all we
You can
have
share
for
it?
you guys. You could share, and then we'll wrap up. Did you want to tell, how do you mark it as a scam? Yeah.
No, my mate has Xfinity, Comcast. And if you get a call that you suspect is a scam, you listen and they say something, you hang up, you push talk, *60, hang up, and eventually that caller will never come through.
Okay, so it's blocked.
If he blocks the last
TV,
caller, okay.
It'll say scam.
Yeah, okay.
One ring, and that's it.
Good.
Okay, good.
Good tip from the phone company.
Well, thanks again, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.